As I choose to develop myself and my business, and actually doing this on a way that most people don't really tap into, at least around my reality or what it used to be my reality, I found myself naturally disconnecting from my environment in which I used to be. The places that I used to go, the people that I used to be with, and hanging out on common spaces. It's not that you intentionally choose to detach yourself from the people, but with time you understand that if you really want to align yourself in a way that just promotes your self development and your inner growth and develop yourself to optimize everything in terms of your career and your businesses, you either have a very good environment for this to occur in which people are doing the same, or then you will naturally disconnect from the world around you, because as you progress you understand that that itself doesn't really serve you in any way. Remember that if you have a goal that you have set up for yourself, you will naturally guide yourself through life and you should be reaching the goal you're aiming for no matter what. All you have to do is to actually trust the process, and each day you should go with the feeling of what you think, not think actually, but feel you should be doing. Because thinking with the brain doesn't allow you to change anything, because the brain is just entangled with your daily activities in which you're used to do, which means that the changes that have to occur within yourself or what you're doing will naturally come by intuition. It's not from the brain, it is from the heart. This sense of guidance we have within all of us, that we feel we should be doing something, it's not really coming from the same source of the thoughts we naturally have by thinking into what we should be doing on a logic basis. And this is a tough thing for people to understand and actually integrate. It takes a long time. Even for me, I I went through a big period of time in which I was just trying to optimize everything using only my brain and going with logic. But the problem is that logic itself may not be the best tool for you to develop yourself, because you have to tap into knowledge that you don't have today, which means that in some way that has to come. And for that to come, you have to get a guidance that doesn't come from your inner experience, so it cannot come from your brain. You either get advice from people that are on a place that you want to be in the future, which is a great opportunity if that's the case for you. But if that's not the case, which was mine, I just had to go with my inner guidance throughout life to keep developing myself and to have a sense of what has to be done. And there's also a process in which you can get things done by just trying everything that comes up to your mind. So essentially, you're trying and going with failure plus failure plus failure till you actually achieve success. But again, this strategy is exclusively coming from the brain and it's not optimized by itself. If you actually tap into yourself in a way of understanding that at some point you should have a guidance, a feeling that you should be doing something or trying something, with time you will naturally be guided to the right thing to do. So I'm not saying to exclusively resort to any of those two tools that we have. We should be using both. Because if you're not getting any intuition about what you should be doing, you're not going to just stand still and hope that at some point you're getting any guidance. But just keep going into this loop in which you're just grinding through your thinking progress or processes just to try to get things done fast, and you're actually on a rush mode in terms of brain processes. This itself creates a loop of stress that may not be optimal for you to work with. So again, this is a process that takes time to actually integrate within ourselves. And I can tell you that I got a lot of years that I was just using my brain. And I just naturally started to integrate this intuition better in my life because I started to understand that by just using my brain, I was limiting myself out of the realm of possibilities I could tap into. And at the same time, because the brain is in a way binded to society's structure of operating systems, which means it's a type of thinking that is entangled with all the beliefs society has, in which you have to run and try everything very hard and very fast. And again, this creates the loop of stress and really rapid execution and thinking that is just too fast for you to actually optimize everything. Things are not really born out of rush. The great ideas people have, the great accomplishes people actually attain in terms of developing new technologies, developing and expanding companies. All of this is a process that takes years. And you can understand by looking into companies. They usually get a 5 to 10 year time or even more in which they're essentially starting the process, expanding and refining their product. So we're speaking about 5 to 10 year gap at the best, because it could be even more. So it's not a rush process, it takes a lot of time. Essentially, if you get to the top of the ladder, because that helps a lot, because the more into the ground you are, the more you understand people run like crazy their entire lives. And they never climb up properly unless they intend to. So I understood that that was not the process I should be going with, because that doesn't work. So I just went straight up to the top of the ladder. And I heard the people's stories and how they operate internally and within themselves. I mean, internally on their companies and within themselves as a person. And when you get to the top, you can have a lot of things that come out from there. Because a lot of people actually tell what society tells, which is not really true, but in a way they choose to tell what everyone believes, which is you have to work very hard and grind your way up. But if that was actually the process to get to the top, everyone would get that. And we really know that there's a number of people working for all their careers. They never climb and they rush all the time. So you get to understand that's not the process. But then some people actually speak the truth, and you get people hearing or saying that all they look, especially when they are high on the ladder, is to have one or two ideas per year that can grant them nine figures in terms of revenue or more. So this means that in a course of a year, they're looking for just a few ideas that are big enough for them to act upon, that is worth for the work to be done. So essentially, this is what happens as you keep climbing up. You stop to go into any penny you can find, and you're naturally moving towards a system or a solution that provides you a lot of money by just doing a few things. So you get to understand that essentially the simple the better. And this is not the natural way of thinking for anyone that is starting, because no one with just a few coins in the pocket is thinking about having a nine figure idea. But the truth is, if they actually get it and if they go with it, they can find themselves within a space of scaling very well in terms of wealth, and potentially a way that they couldn't even tap in any other way before. So this is a way of thinking essentially that is far different from what most people believe. And I remember to watch a guy that, I think the conversation was actually removed. It was a conversation on YouTube. And the guy was very much around my age. And he was a billionaire. And the guy was saying really some things that just made me be aware of, which actually connected to what I was doing at the same time. So the guy was saying that his schedule was entirely like he was going to bed at 10 p.m. to make sure he would not go into a dinner with anyone, because he was saying that spending time with people was no longer serving him. So he was intentionally going to bed at a time that he could be invited to go into a dinner, just to make sure that never happened. Because he was 100% grinding on his career and on expanding his business. And therefore, he was not willing to take any time to just get a dinner with regular people that could just speak about regular stuff that he was not interested in. And at the same time, he was waking up very early, because he said the world started to operate around 3 a.m., I believe it was what he said. So he was interested on waking up at that time, 3 a.m., 4 a.m., more or less around that time. And just by hearing his conversation and understanding how he thinks and how he processes everything within his brain by the way he speaks, I got to understand that actually the way to climb up is to remove yourself from existence in terms of the common space in which people usually share. I also read a lot of books around people that scaled up very high on the ladder. I remember to saw I've seen a book that I read that was very interesting, about a guy that a long time ago was a billionaire. I think he was probably the only billionaire in the world, or just one of the few, that had an empire built up on petrol company, and he just dropped a lot of interesting things that he was finding throughout his career, and also his belief system around pretty much life itself and business, to his own son. And within the letters, we could understand that essentially it was pretty much on his own in terms of managing everything, being aware of everything. He was doing all of it on his own when it comes to deciding for himself. Of course, he had a lot of people that were working within him, on the company, but the decisions on his life and the procedures he was acting upon was exclusively coming from him. And also, another thing that I notice is all of those great people, in terms of entrepreneurs that grow very high on the ladder and became huge on their own space, they love businesses naturally, and at the same time they all believe in God, because you can go through books of a number of them very successful, and even if they don't openly say they believe in God, you understand by what they say on the book itself that they are resorting to a power that is within them, that is essentially a divine power. They may not say this clearly, but it becomes very obvious when we read through people's stories. And even the top athletes in a number of spaces, you understand that's pretty much the same case. They believe there's a source of power that is existent within themselves. And it's pretty much entangled with this idea of God. And there was a moment in which I actually start to believe, because for a major part of my life, I was not believing on any source of power or God per se. But I started to integrate in all the stories, and I started to understand that even if I was denying something, just because I was not finding an evidence for, the truth was that some things in my life that were to occur, I couldn't really explain without like understanding there was something else to life that I couldn't really explain nor understand. And then when you start to actually connect all the dots, you understand that that is actually true. And we may be actually lying to ourselves by just denying the obvious existence of a power within us. And today I have absolutely no doubt that we have this. And also going back into people's stories, the people that ascend far high in terms of their own achievements in pretty much whatever they wanted to go for, they often were faced with very extreme challenges that just put them to the ground and made them question life itself. And those moments of darkness is usually when people actually tap into the power that they have within them. They get to understand there's something there that was probably always there. They just weren't integrating the power within themselves. So after you get an understanding of the nature of power you can get just by tapping into yourself inside, you start to understand how true it is. So today we find the modern science actually discovering things in quantum physics field in which essentially they are explaining through science how reality actually operates. And essentially they say that reality is a construction that happens within the mind, which means that reality itself is not an objective reality itself. It's a subjective reality that happens within each mind of its own, of each individual person. And we're thinking that we are discovering something new on these modern ages, but A lot of people are correlating this to the whole books of a lot of wise people that once lived in this planet. And it's actually just telling exactly the same thing, but without the same words. So in other words, they're speaking exactly the same truth. If you go to Leonardo da Vinci, Einstein, Newton, all of them speak about a reality that essentially entangles with the principles they are discovering today. The difference was that the gap between the capacities of people were so big that they couldn't understand these bright minds. And the bright minds themselves maybe were not able to fully explain themselves to the rest of the community in order to integrate the information. And at the same time, the society also tries to, by pattern behavior, deny every existence of something that is not within the belief system of the society itself, which means that essentially people not understanding something, they naturally fight that thing and deny their existence. They just get triggered by this new knowledge that is coming forward. But there's only two options here. You can choose to remain in the space you are, or you can choose to actually embrace what's happening and just come to live in a new reality in which essentially people really learn how to live life and manipulate their reality in a way that they can create life as they want to, and they can achieve whatever they desire. The choice is exclusively of each own person to get to understand how things really work. Because the truth is, we should master how life works and how money works. Because with these two understandings, we essentially would free our lives in a way that we desire to. But obviously, if everyone was told this, the society structure that exists today would just have to fall. Because this structure was created back in time, on industrial time, to just teach people how to be good employees. That's why people are convinced that the way to live life is to build themselves on some knowledge and then go to work to some companies. And of course, this can happen and can be the reality for people if they choose to be so. But it doesn't really have to be that way. There's other options for everyone. And as long as people understand this, they can free themselves to do whatever they desire in life